big stand like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game, I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke in my face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, turn like Hunter muscle. If you suffer like tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you ain't down with that, then I got two words for you, suck it. Too sweet, too sweet.
Welcome everyone to Australia's wrestling podcast, WrestleRate Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. It's good to see you. It's good to be back off the New Year's break. I had a little bit of extra break because, well, nothing was really happening. So what are you going to do? Guest this week is Joel Bateman, the Smash Hit, one of the men behind Deathmatch Australia. We're going to talk to him all about that and get into a good old discussion about all the things surrounding Deathmatch Australia. I think that's about it for the wrap-up. It's going to be a real quick one because like I said, nothing really has been happening in Australian wrestling over the Christmas break. And I'll tell you one thing, though. As of recording, it's Monday, the 11th of January up here in Queensland. And we had to go, first day, one day, luckily, I had to go to work and wear those face masks. And I got to give it to everyone that lived in Melbourne, how you guys did it for that long. I don't know, because it was terrible. Like, I do it because you've got to do it. You've got to stay safe. But, yeah, it wasn't fun. So big shout out to everyone in Melbourne. Really, heart goes out to what you guys went through for those month or two where you had to do it. So aside from that, I don't think we've got much else to do. I think the world is slowly starting to get back to Australia anyway, starting to get back into the swing of getting some stuff going. A little bit scares here, there, and everywhere with COVID, but hopefully the way the governments are sort of handling it, we can deal with that stuff and still keep going on with wrestling events. It's one of the things I'm going to bring up with my guest this week, Joel Bateman, just how they sort of go about handling that sort of thing in these unprecedented times that everyone says. But we'll talk about that and a whole lot more right here on WrestleRate Australia.
Deathmatch Downunder is here.
We've got a new story to tell.
It's not going to be pretty. Welcome to the family, because I am Deathmatch ready.
Because I am Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
Because I am Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
I'm Deathmatch ready.
I'm Deathmatch ready.
I'm Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
Because I'm Deathmatch ready.
I'm Deathmatch ready. We're ready.
Joined by my good mate, Smash Hit Joel Bateman. How are you, mate? How you doing? How are the nerves heading up to this week of?
I don't think I'm nervous yet. It's bloody warm in Melbourne today. It's like 38. So I'm a little bit, I guess, flushed and flustered. Every day this week, the to-do list, every time I knock something off it, I seem to add 2 things to it. So the nerves haven't hit yet. The nerves probably won't hit until the doors open on the night, and then it'll go from making sure that everything's running like clockwork to, oh crap, I've got to have a match in like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Once that happens, yeah, I'm going to be nervous as all get out. But until then, I'm lucky I've got enough tasks to bash out this week to keep me kind of distracted.
How's it been starting? Like, it's hard enough just doing a startup promotion to start with. How's different is it doing it in these sort of times where you don't know from, like, especially like, I'll just say from up here in Queensland, we got 20 hours notice that there was a lockdown. So how is that sort of playing on because luckily it's not just a one-man thing. You've got a whole team of people ready to go there.
I got an amazing team of humans. I guess being optimistic helps. I try not to think about it. So full disclosure, with Deathmatch Downunder, we were meant to launch back in May. Casanova Valentine came out here. We did 1 no-ring show. Technically, we did 2 no-ring shows with them. And we actually had to cancel the 3rd because COVID had just started to hit Australia mid-March. And in the time between the Friday night where we had the first show and the Wednesday night where we were meant to have the second show, everything got locked down. We weren't allowed to have more than 20 people in a room.
Yeah.
So that kind of derailed those plans. And then from there, we were in lockdown up until, 6-8 weeks before Christmas, up till the end of October. So I tell everyone we kind of had the blessing of the pandemic, because the promotion that we would have opened in May would have looked vastly different from the promotion that we're able to open now. Like, think about Speaking Out happened, Black Lives Matter happened. All this stuff happened because of, as kind of like a byproduct to the pandemic. So it gave us the time to cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure that everything that we're putting out there is exactly what we want to be putting out there. We can be a very proactive company as opposed to everyone else who was already running shows who was a reactive company.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how do you sort of deal with? Do you do like background checks on people now, or something if you want to have them on shows? Or
one of our main values is transparency. To be completely honest, like, we believe open and honest communication is key. The Australian wrestling community, as it grows more and more, is still the same small community that you and I have been a part of for a very long time. So, what are the 3 ways of getting information around? Yeah. Telegram, telephone,
telewrestler.
So, if there's an issue with somebody, we tend to hear about it pretty quickly. But we've also kind of gone out our way to cultivate an amazing locker room of people, where none of that stuff is a worry. And I'd like to think everyone in our locker room is a genuinely good person, and passionate about pro wrestling, passionate about, the things that we're passionate about in terms of things like inclusivity and LGBT matters and stuff like that, that we can all kind of work together. And for me, a rising tide floats all boats. So I'm trying not to focus too much on what everybody else is doing and who's using who and all that kind of stuff. Like, because we're a brand new company, when everything happened, we don't know what wrestling's going to look like in a post COVID-19, post Speaking Out world. Like, the wrestling business is forever changed by this.
Yes.
This is our Me Too moment, So we took our best punt at what we believe pro wrestling should be, regardless of if we're putting on a super risky product or not, because we are. Like, we're doing fucking death matches. But if we can do death matches and have a myotherapist on staff, a strength and conditioning coach on staff, bystander training, mental health first aid, paramedic at every show, if we can do all this and still be cutting each other to ribbons with barbed wire and light tubes every night, then why can't normal companies?
Yeah. That is a very fair thing. Also with because we were talking about it a little before we started recording, like, the world's gotten a lot smaller, but it's also sort of now isolated again, because interstate travel for people is sort of, you don't know what to do. So you really, at the moment anyway, you have to pick, for you guys, Melbourne only wrestlers, because you just don't know. You could have someone from, say, Sydney ready to go and signed up, and it's going to be a great match, but something happens in Sydney and everything goes to shit, and, well, that guy's gone. So has it made you sort of look more into your local, like, scene for newer people or something like that?
A bit of both. So, yeah, one of the 2 marquee matches we led with in our advertising was Shaz McKenzie versus Richie Taylor. We love Shaz. Shaz has, a great deal of market penetration in the US, which is, one of our markets with, going out on IWTV. COVID outbreak, gone.
Yeah.
Replacements for other wrestlers from Northern Sydney. COVID outbreak expands, gone. As I said to you before we started recording, we've publicly changed the card twice. Behind the scenes, we've changed it 20 times. Because it's, how about this person? What's your postcode? Look it up. Crap. Okay. How about this person? What's your postcode? Look it up. Crap. That kind of thing. So we're really lucky that South Australia hasn't been shut down. Like, Michael Weaver's still able to make it over, and we're able to secure Tommy Knight as a replacement. But we've definitely taken a bit more of a deep dive into kind of Melbourne wrestling. I'm lucky I've got a pretty good relationship with most of the companies around here, but there are so many reputable training schools here now, all churning out good talent, but they're all shooting at different talent, which is really cool. So, you know, for example, we've got a couple of shows coming up, which I can tell you about off air, but looking at certain talent and going, why don't you come and try this role? Or, you know, hey, have you, like, we're never going to force anybody into death matches. That's rule number one for me. I'm never going to put anybody in a situation that they're uncomfortable with. Someone comes to me and goes, I want to do death matches. I'll be like, fuck yeah, cool. We'll put you in one of the experienced guys on a small show where it doesn't matter. You can, you know, sink your teeth into it a little bit. But why don't you come and try being, you know, wrestling this particular style? Like if you're a big guy who likes to fly around and do a bit of comedy, why don't you come and fucking beat people up for, you know, a period of time? So it's been a lot of fun kind of mixing and matching and trying to find the best of everybody's personal ability. Just because it's the style they may enjoy wrestling doesn't necessarily mean it's the style that they're the best at. And you know, it may be so they come to me and go, hey, maybe I want to try being a heel. Okay, cool, awesome. You know, if that's something you haven't got the opportunity to do elsewhere, and you believe in your heart of hearts, you can do it to the best of your ability, and it's going to help you, and it's going to help your opponent, and it's going to help the show, and it's going to help the promotion, then why would I say no?
Do you think about, like, when someone comes to you and says, I want to try being a heel, do you think, well, you're face everywhere else in Melbourne, maybe that's not going to really, or you're not really concerned about that sort of thing?
Back in the day, I didn't care. I always thought every company existed within its own universe. However, with social media, that belief is no longer rational. So for me, like, especially with faces and heels and shades of gray, because there are so many shades of gray now, it's all about motive for me. Like, if someone's a babyface everywhere else and they come to me and want to be a heel, and I go, okay, well, why are you a prick here and not everywhere else? And, you know, it just takes, you know, a good solid conversation and really diving into the psyche of whatever character, you know, we're working on, or if we're creating a new character, and going, all right, well, why are you a prick? And does that still fit in with the character that you have everywhere else? And it's worked. Like, there are talents coming up that'll be displayed differently to where they're displayed everywhere else. Like, I'll be completely honest with you, but it's all of the morals and the values of the characters, you know, linear across all of the companies that they work. So it's not a far fetch for them to come out and be a prick here, but be nice over there, because the values of why they're being a prick when they're working for us, you know, make complete sense.
My biggest thing against shades of grey is that we're trying to tell, and this is just my opinion, we're trying to tell the crowd how to feel about these because they're playing a role. And if they're coming out and they're being a bit of both, then the crowd aren't going to feel one way or the other about them. That's just my personal
I agree with
opinion.
You. I don't disagree with you. I think it also comes down to knowing your audience. Certain audiences need to be spoon-fed stuff. Certain audiences, you know, have a basic understanding of wrestling, or even more than a basic understanding of wrestling. They're invested in long-term storytelling, and when you've got an audience that knows where they're picking up from, or knows enough about the product, whether it's been explained to you or you've done your own research, then you can play with those shades of gray. But if you're doing a show in front of 400 kids, you need to spoon feed them. But for us, like, and it still blows my mind that we sold the show out in 2 weeks. Sight unseen. We haven't had a fucking show yet. Like, and there's so many things where I've turned around and gone, like, and we've achieved something. I'm like, are you sure about this? Like, for example, when we got our IWTV deal, I'm like, you realize that I could just be a muck, right? And self-doubt, obviously. But then obviously they go and vet us to other Australians, and all the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive. But
the rest of the Telegraph.
Exactly. So we've sold the show out in 2 weeks. So I know that we've got 200 people who know, A, like, are keen for a night out, B, know enough about wrestling that I don't have to spoon feed them stuff. And C, because we haven't had live entertainment in the city for almost a year, they're going to be super receptive to whatever I give them, regardless of what I give them. Which isn't an excuse for me to phone it in terms of what we're putting on. If anything, I feel more pressure to put on an incredible show because everyone's had no live entertainment for so long.
You want to do it so they don't want to go anywhere else. Well,
I
not don't want to,
there's-
but you know what I mean. You want to retain them and have them coming back. Do you know what I mean?
Look, admittedly, if we could sell the entire show out 2 weeks in advance every time, that'd be great. That'd take a lot of pressure off of me and my advertising budget. But I definitely think there's a share in the market, and like, without burying Queensland wrestling too much, only because I've had a lot of phone calls from people from Queensland in the last week. If it's treated like a business and everyone just communicates with each other, there is enough room in the market for everyone. I'm trying to carve out a niche market of a niche market. I was like, when we put this together, we all thought, oh yeah, we'll draw 80 to 100 people. We'll just run, the small venue and do what we can and have some fun with it. And then we sold the show out and went, we might be onto something here. And then IWTV picked up and went, we might be onto something here. But like, for example, we put our dates out. We put out a year's worth of dates before we've had our first show.
Yeah, I noticed that.
We didn't, to be completely honest, we didn't get it back. We got it back from most of the companies. We got that really good communication back from most of the companies. Not everybody, but through the Wrestling Telegram, we found out what their dates were and realized there was a clash and moved.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a problem. There's no point. Like, what benefit is there trying to clash heads in the same city? We're just going to divide the audience.
Oh,
like,
I can't tell you the arguments I've had in the past with people over date clashes.
Date clashes, time clashes, because we said if it was unavoidable, we'll take the afternoon. Like, if we've booked a really strong show and they've booked a really strong show and people want to go and see both shows, awesome. I'm all for it. If there's enough money in people's pockets to be able to go to both, I would love people to go to both. I'm happy to take the afternoon and to be home after a show by 9 o'clock. That sounds like a great day for me.
I've had a promoter once say, "Oh, we'll put this guy at the start of our show so he can drive 2 hours and then work the main event at your show."
See, because Melbourne that happens
and
pretty regularly.
I'm like,
happen pretty regularly.
Man, how about no? Well, why? Well, because it's the main event. They need time to sort of talk about this, not a 2 hour drive and then relax for 5 minutes and then start getting ready. It's just
we used to get that. We used to have that here. We called it the Cannonball Run. You just kind of get used to it, to be honest.
Anyway, those days are done.
Not in this city.
No, not for you, man. I was actually going to ask you about that. When you started the idea of Deathmatch Australia, was it like, because you really are like, wrestling is a niche market and you're going for a niche market of that niche market? Was it your plan was always just to be small sort of shows and see where you go from there, was it?
I mean, admittedly, like, I've been
because like, just like the title alone of the promotion would probably turn certain people off from coming to see it just because they might not be into deathmatch wrestling.
Correct. But so, two-part answer.
Yeah.
One, the biggest critique against deathmatch wrestling in this country is that it could potentially hurt the industry. For those of us who've been around long enough and remember what happened with Carnage in 2002, advertised as great family entertainment, drew 1,200 people, massive bloody deathmatch, ended up all over the papers and all over the news.
Oh, Jesus.
That is a very summarized story of something that would take me half an hour to tell you. So anyone who was around there immediately whitewashed deathmatch with deathmatch is dangerous to wrestling scene because the houses went from 1,200 to 80 in 3 weeks.
Oof.
So by putting deathmatch in the name, we are not false advertising anything. We are setting clear expectations of what the product is. We're not doing 7 death matches because it'd get really boring really quickly, but we got a 7-match show, 3 of them are death matches. And they're all different. But we are leading with a mature product that is not for children, that's not going to insult your intelligence, but still present a spectacle of wrestling. In terms of carving out a niche market, I realized by doing that and by putting deathmatch in the name and there's light tubes in the logo and all that kind of stuff, that we can alienate some people and some people aren't into that. And I'm fine with that. I would hate to present something that somebody isn't interested in watching. What's the point? Again, it's that bait and switch. It's setting that clear expectation. I didn't think we were going to, realistically, I didn't think we were going to sell the first show out. The fact that we did is really cool. If we continue to do so, that'd be really cool. There's been lots of little decisions in terms of where we want to go. And realistically, I'll ride the roller coaster as far as it'll take me. And I know the rest of my team feels the exact same way. I know that we've got some things in place for towards the end of 2021. I don't know how closely you looked at that calendar.
Yeah.
There's some interesting stuff in there. And the 2022 calendar looks pretty cool as well. So we're going to be traveling a bit, which I'm pretty excited for. But, you know, that's all come from fans going, again, sight unseen, but come to our town, or wrestling promoters who, you know, I've had the opportunity to work with, because like I said, I've been blessed to work with some of the biggest companies in the world. And, you know, people in different states and even in different countries going, hey, like, you've always been good to do business with if, you know, the opportunity ever arises. And I'm always one to try and say yes to an opportunity for the fear of the time you say no and watching it pass by and realize you passed up what could have been the best thing that ever happened to you or your promotion or your family. So there's a lot of hard work ahead, but I'm pretty excited for it, and we'll grow as big as we can. Like, who knows?
Yeah. Have you found more doors to sort of, you have to sort of push on doors a little bit more just because of the title of the promotion?
Not necessarily. Because we're honest. We went to Arrow and Swanston, and when we booked them, we explained who we are and we explained the type of product we're putting on, and we sent them references from other shows that we've been a part of. And they were cool. If I had have gone to a high school and pretended that I was the WWE and then bled all over the basketball court, we'd probably burn that venue pretty quickly. So we've just been honest with communication. Like, for whatever reason, sometimes it hasn't gotten through the best. Like, there's been talent that we've booked going, I'm not doing any death matches. I'm not asking you to do any death matches.
Yeah.
Not every match on this show is a death match. And they go, oh, right. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, we've got to improve our messaging in terms of making sure that, you know, some of the best wrestlers in the country aren't coming in and doing blood and guts and glass, because that's not what they're the best at. But outside of that, no, we haven't really found it hard because of the name. If anything, it's been kind of easy because, you know, if people are just after a one and done, it's a novelty to them. And like, if you've ever seen a death match live, like a proper death match with light tubes and stuff, like, back when, you know, in my 9-to-5 job, I was a travel agent. I had a couple of clients who were in Japan the same time I was, and their first live wrestling show was a BJW show.
Oh. Okay.
And the main event's like a 300 light tube death match. And they walked out, like, we went to the pub afterwards, and they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Is all wrestling like this? No, it's just this one little company. And they're like, well, we want to see more wrestling like this. And then, but off the back of that, turned up at every, you know, the promotion I was working for at the time, every single show for 12 months after that, just because they liked wrestling and that was their first experience to wrestling. I think deathmatch wrestling genuinely has, probably in this country, one of the closest shots of going mainstream in terms of an art form as opposed to a sport than anything else. Because it is that spectacle. Like, if you stop and look, and, you know, with the lights and the music, and instead of ropes, there's barbed wire strung up and the lights hitting the metal and reflecting off, and then you can see a pane of glass in the corner that's got, you know, this amazing reflection, and there's this ominous music, and the atmosphere is really there, and it's tense because there's, it's like seeing the high wire act at the circus, you know what I mean? Or the guy juggling chainsaws. There's a very legitimate element of danger there, and it's a combination of bloodlust and anticipation and nervousness for the performers, you know, all these things. And people sit there and, like, you look at your arms and you see you've got goosebumps. You're like, this is amazing. Like, I was like that the first time I saw a death match. I was, you know, 11 years old, and that's why I have always wanted to be a deathmatch wrestler. I'm now just old enough where I can not listen to people when they say no.
Yeah. Do you worry about the novelty of it somewhat wearing off over time?
Nah, because a big issue at the moment in American deathmatch wrestling is lack of storytelling. They're hot-shotting everything. It's just 7-match card, and all 7 matches could headline a card. Just big death match, big death match, big death match, and they've all got glass, and they've all got light tubes, and we've all got barbed wire, and we've all got thumbtacks and gusset plates and stuff like that. And it's just like, whoa. So by the end of it, like, I'm a deathmatch wrestler. I've been wrestling for, almost 18 years now. And by the end of watching the show, I'm gassed. So giving context to the violence is something that we very early on tried to set up.
Mhm.
Like, our top 2 death matches, myself and Guido and Damian Rivers versus Callum Butcher on the first event, both have context, even though we haven't had a show yet. But we're not insulting anybody's intelligence with the story. That's a real story. But we've given 2 people a reason to fight, and we've just kind of upped the ante in terms of where they're fighting.
Mhm.
But it's no, super convoluted. Name one of a billion horribly convoluted angles. I'm not in love with a mop, and then my friend shredded the mop and then put sawdust all over the ring and bullshit like that. They're very simple to explain, simple to understand stories, and everyone's kind of felt that way, one time or another. And so we're gonna settle, these stories in a death match.
Yeah.
And as long as that when we're doing death matches, there is context to the violence, it's not just violence for violence sake, then and context may be as simple as rankings or a title shot, or it doesn't have to be hard, but as long as there's context to what we're doing, I don't think the novelty will wear off.
Yeah. See, that's my biggest thing as an old school wrestling fan, like old school as in like the old NWA, all of that sort of thing. I've always thought that like the death match is sort of like the culmination of a feud.
Yeah.
You work up to it. So I think that's why I haven't been that attracted to deathmatch. Like this is nothing against you because I love you. it's just that for me is because I've always wanted that to be the blow off. Like there's no other possible way these guys could like fight each other. They're not going to like get on anymore unless this happens. So and that's sort of what I mean. It's like, how do you sort of fight that from like he's doing? Say for you, for example, will be fighting Guido this month, and then the next month you'd be fighting someone else in a death match. Say, how do you sort of keep that going? So it's like there's stakes for every. Do you know what I mean?
Well, so the good thing is, I'm totally with you. So the good thing is, people think deathmatch is this really narrow definition of wrestling. Deathmatch can be a really wide definition of wrestling, depending on what you think. There's a deathmatch called a drunken deathmatch, where every minute you have to take a shot. You're just upping the stakes of a traditional wrestling match. But structured upping the stakes as opposed to going, this is a hardcore match, we fucking throw everything in the ring without any rhyme or reason. Like we've got a barbed wire board deathmatch on the show. Realistically, that's not going to be overly violent. You see worse stuff on WWE.
Mm.
It's two barbed wire boards in opposing corners and 2 piles of chairs, and that's it. There's not much more to it. Me and Guido in the main event, on the other hand, because there's a title belt at stake for myself and Guido, and there's a very personal issue between Damo and Callan. We up the ante a little bit more. We're not necessarily going to be doing, light tube death matches every show, because light tubes are expensive.
Yeah.
And that's something that people forget, like how expensive death matches are to put on. A box you can do the math. A box of 25 tubes, $75. 100 light tube death match.
Mm.
And I could guarantee you there's going to be more than 100 light tubes there. So we're already like, what's that? 75. It's fucking, almost a $400 match before we book the talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you tell that to a lot of promoters, like, you're fucking insane. But
the worst one is when you tell a promoter that this is what you want to do, and they're, can you bring your own stuff?
Yeah,
like,
used to
what?
that one. I get a shed full of gimmicks. It's all right. But, we do have title belts. They're coming. That helps give context. There are personal issues. And I'm a big fan of Japanese style booking, where you set a particular match off in the distance. So, for example, I could set a match 6 months from now or 3 months from now, and then use all the shows between now and then to build context, even if there isn't any. Say, for example, I get a title match against, hypothetically, Mad Dog 3 months down the track. on all the shows leading up to that, I'm probably going to be in variations of tag matches and tag team death matches with me and other people against Mad Dog and other people. And depending on how those matches finish, provides context. Maybe it proves that I can beat Mad Dog in a tag match. Maybe it proves that I can tap Mad Dog out. Maybe Mad Dog, injures me very badly in the first match and has opened up a weakness in me as the story progresses that builds to this crescendo that is the singles title match.
So
there's all this underlying story in history to make that match mean more.
So you're a sort of a favor of doing those, the tag matches and all that leading up, not sort of leaving that anticipation of an actual meeting?
So it depends on the people. Like sometimes a first time ever is a big deal, but there's very few first time evers left. Like there is a handful of people that I want to try and keep apart. Doesn't mean it'll work. But there are a couple of big time matches that haven't been done before that probably won't get that same build up, but they're few and far between. But if they're the first time match, that's the context. The context is, pre-woven into the fabric of the match. So if there's no context there, I will do everything I can to give it context, because every match needs to mean something. Otherwise, what are we fighting for except money?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's deathmatch can be 1 or 100 depending on how hard you want to push yourself and how hard you want to push the envelope. But it's all, again, going back to those shades of gray. Like there are different levels to what we're able to do to be able to advance the narrative, so to speak, to build to those big blow off matches and have them make sense.
And before you mentioned it before, but even before you've even had one show, you already got to deal with IWTV. Is that it won't be a streaming thing, it'll be a post production deal, I'm guessing, not live streaming. I mean, yeah,
it'll be a post production thing. As much fun, I know what you mean. As much as I'd love to go live, I don't think I could actually deal with the stress. I may actually have that heart attack that I've been joking about for the last 10 years. But no, the reason we're not going live, honestly, is time difference. It's 7 or 8 o'clock at night. It's 1 or 2 in the morning on the East Coast in the US, and not far past that on the West. So it's just not practical for us to be able to reach an international audience. Otherwise, and to make it work, would be running shows at lunchtime, which I'm not above doing, but not necessarily something I'm excited to be doing either. So yeah, it's going to be a post-production deal. We're going to turn it around in less than 2 weeks, which is super exciting. But it also allows us to have high production values as well. Again, a big fan of old school Japanese wrestling. I love my pre-match promo. I love my post-match promo. It gives us time to cut all of those into the final footage. We've got an amazing commentary team. My wife, Jess, and, Andy Coyne have signed on to commentate these shows. Andy, best play-by-play guy in the country. And, putting it out live may not be able to, there are things that happen when you run live. Things sometimes just don't work.
Yeah.
And the ability to kind of just take, a week and a half to kind of trim a bit of the fat, tighten the show up so it doesn't run 4.5 hours. Because, setting up that main event's going to take 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
And live stream, you got to kill that time where, it can be that on an IWTV feed. And then, the benefit of it is it airs at a reasonable time in the US. I believe it's going to drop at either 8 or 9 o'clock Eastern time. So here it'll drop at lunchtime. It'll be a Friday lunchtime that it drops here, and a really primo time in the US, and the UK, as always, going to have to stay up in the middle of the night. So, it's super exciting. Again, they jumped on board sight unseen. We've got a premiere date for our February show as well, which I'm super excited about. We haven't even had a January show yet, but if Australia's internet wasn't so shit.
Believe me, I know all about that.
Because that's a huge part of it as well. Our internet fucking sucks. If our internet wasn't so shit, I'd probably and we may do it down the track as a novelty, do a live show for the US and put on a show at lunchtime. That's not outside of the realm of possibility. It saves then when they do the afternoon shows, I get up at 4 a.m. to watch them. So,
Hmm.
or we'll put on a show at midnight and make them get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch a pay-per-view.
Well, when they want to watch New Japan, they've got to get up at that time. So
that's exactly right. Now that you mention it, yeah. So it's really, really cool with IWTV. Like, we did have the chat when we started DMDU, and we went, do we want to run our own streaming service, like our own Vimeo? So do we want to make money off it, or do we want to get some exposure out of it? And we exposure 100%. So we teamed up with the best platform that we believe is going for independent wrestling, and especially deathmatch wrestling. And you know, we're super excited about it. We did the math, and we went, we might be, because obviously the US has, you know, COVID-19 is running roughshod over them, and the UK is not really doing anything. We're going to be some of the only Western wrestling putting out new content on IWTV.
Yeah.
Like, with a crowd as well. Like, it's not a studio taping. We're going to have 200 people in the building. So it's super humbling, but that's where the nerves come from. You know, I'm not necessarily, you know, like, and, you know, you've promoted as well and run shows and booked, and you're worried, you know, is everything going to come off the way? Is people going to turn up? And I don't have to worry about people turning up, thank goodness. You know,
you're done there.
we're blessed to have such amazing fans to kind of, you know, back us in sight unseen. But as long as all 24 people on the show don't have a bad night, I think we're in pretty good shape.
And like you said, you already, when do the tickets go on sale for Smashing Sandcastles?
Well, it's a great question. Smashing Sandcastles tickets on sale Monday, the 18th of January. We did think about dropping them early, but we figured that's probably not fair on everybody, especially if they've got money already tied up in the January show. Plus, there'll be stuff announced at the January show that'll probably really make you want to come to February. I personally think February is the strongest show. That is getting changed every day because of these goddamn motherfucking COVID restrictions. But I still think it's a stronger show than January personally. So they go on sale on the 18th at 10 a.m. Melbourne time, which I believe is 10 a.m. Brisbane time. Don't quote me on it.
You're an hour ahead of us.
It's 8:15 at the moment.
Yeah.
So it'll go on sale 9 a.m. Brisbane time. If anyone wants to, you know, roll the dice with COVID restrictions, see, that was the thing. We had a bunch of fans from interstate tickets as well. We had fans from Adelaide and from Sydney and from Brisbane all like buy tickets to come to the show, sight unseen. So like, there obviously is a market for death matches because people wouldn't be flying in from interstate if there wasn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all looking up. Hopefully that we can keep COVID sort of just overseas. Just keep it over there for a while until the vaccine gets through Australia. That'd be just great. And everyone can get back to doing full-time shows like you guys are starting to do right now. And congratulations on it, mate. It looks like the fact that you've got all your dates through to, and I'm really interested to see what the sort of thing you've got planned for a New Year's Eve type show. That would be, I saw that and I went, oof.
Well, I could tell you what we've got planned. It may change, but I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler because realistically, I'm probably going to forget between now and December. The plan is I'm going to make a ridiculous Happy New Year light tube contraction and hang it above the ring like the ball in Times Square. And you just hope that the match that's on at midnight is a death match and not a really good technical wrestling match, because that thing's coming down at 12 o'clock regardless.
Oh, shit. Oh, Joel Bateman, mate, thank you so much for coming on. For people that want to follow Deathmatch Down Under and everything to do with how they get onto IWTV and all that sort of stuff, mate, just put it out there now, because if you can't make it in Melbourne because you are restricted and you're into deathmatch wrestling, and even if you don't want to watch the deathmatch wrestlings, the matches beforehand are still some of the greatest stuff you'll see in the country at the moment. So let them people know how they can get out there and catch everything that you're involved with, mate.
Yep, definitely. So on Twitter, we are DM Down Under. Instagram and Facebook, it's both Deathmatch Down Under. On Instagram, obviously, it's all one word. On Facebook, you can just search Deathmatch Down Under. We debut on IWTV on the 25th of January. Unfortunately, the show is sold out. It takes place this Saturday night, called An Out Come the Wolves. if you haven't already, and this is my big push, if you haven't already, please sign up to independentwrestling.tv and use the code DMDU. It gives you free 5 days of IWTV, and there's something like 300,000 hours. There's more wrestling footage, and they've been uploading old school US indie footage as well. Old school Jersey Old Pro, old school IWA Mid-South. So if your favorite wrestler is AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan or Samoa Joe, you can jump on and see where they started, and it's sick. That's what I've been watching. But if you use the code DMDU and you get yourself your 5 free days, it also shows IWTV that Australian wrestling fans are passionate about Australian wrestling. Regardless if it's us, PWA is on there as well. There's a couple of other Australian companies with just spot shows here and there, but if you can show IWTV that there's a market in Australia and there are wrestling fans that are willing to vote with their wallets, if I'm being completely honest, it's only $10 Australian a month. It then gives us as a country more ammunition to try and ask more of IWTV, to cater more to an Australian fan. Whether it's getting more Australian companies on IWTV, whether it is running a live event for an Australian time zone to be able to live stream so everyone in the country can see what we or another promotion do live. If we can show them that Australian fans care by using that code so they can see who sent them, then that means, just as much as coming and buying a live ticket to a show, because we can kind of point and go, look, our fans are just as cool as we've been telling you they are.
Joel Bateman, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Congratulations on the wedding. I forgot I was going to do it off the top of the show, but we were already talking about other stuff. Congratulations on that, mate. Welcome to the club.
Thank you very much. Married life is very similar to unmarried life. I still have a partner who loves me to death. I'm the luckiest man on earth, man. Jess, she's fucking brilliant. So,
yeah.
And, I couldn't ask for a more supportive partner in crime and a more supportive color commentator now. So it's been an awesome ride. It's actually, it's 1 month. It's 1 month and 1 day today, actually. So yeah, if I've got to do the math, I'm pretty sure there's a 31 in there. So it's about a month now, but exciting times ahead.
It's going to make critiquing the color commentary interesting. No, you were fine, babe.
No, she's her harshest critic.
Oh, really?
Again, you've seen Jess wrestle, so she was her harshest critic when she was, putting together matches and always wanted to better herself. And then, it will drop this week. Snapmares Media recorded a kind of a preview show.
Yep.
So Andy and Jess recorded a preview show, and her first time recording anything like that in a super long time, blew it out of the water. I was in another meeting in the other room listening to it, and they're like, "Why are you pulling that face?" I'm like, "I'm listening to Jess kill this thing. She's doing so good and has no idea." Second she finished recording, I'm ready to go, "That was amazing." She's like, "Oh, I'm all right." She's absolutely brilliant. I'm super excited to see what she can do behind the desk with Andy.
Yeah, it's like sort of doing this sort of thing. I know that a lot of people you talk to and you just go, "Oh, do you want to come and play?" "Oh, do you know if I'll be a talk?" Don't worry about it. As soon as we start talking, you just forget about it and it's fine. It's just the initial minute or so that you get. Then it's like, oh, it's just talking.
When you're self-aware, it's a little bit tough, and you're trying to sit there and go, I don't want to say the same intro phrase too many times.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that I don't swear. That's the other good thing about it being an 18+ show. The commentators can swear.
Yeah.
So can the wrestlers. But yeah, eventually once you stop becoming self-aware and you're just talking, and as long as you know your subject matter well enough, it comes so easily, and you get some really magical moments out of it.
Mate, I've been doing this for 7 years now, and I still haven't worked out a finishing line. Every month it's another one that's like, well, that was terrible. Good night.
I've been cutting promos for 15 now, and I still don't have a go home line on any of my promos. I just
the only one I ever had was one that I stole off Bobby Heenan, and I still don't feel right about doing it all the time.
Which one was that?
Because that's my opinion, and you're entitled to it.
I kind of like that, actually. That's a nice homage. That's a nice homage to Bobby.
I love Bobby. Bobby's my idol. Everyone thinks when they see me manage they think, oh, you're just trying to be Paul Heyman. I said, no, I'm trying to be Bobby Heenan.
Yeah. We'll get you a weasel suit.
Sick. Thank you very much for joining me, mate.
Anytime, mate.
Once again, big thanks to my guest, Joel Bateman, for coming on at such short notice. Of course, week of the show, it's always hard to get some time to yourself and to be able to carve out 40 minutes to talk to me. We're really appreciated to him. Great guy, one of the good guys in Australian wrestling. It's good to see what he's doing here with Deathmatch Down Under. Again, you heard it on the podcast. Go to IWTV, sign up, 5 days free. PWA's on there now as well as Deathmatch. If you notice something different, it's because when I normally I film the intros, the outros, the interviews all together in one, and I forgot to do it. So I came to putting everything together and looked and thought, oh, where's my outro? And so now we're in my TV room, so you can there you go, you get to see how I watch. This is how I watch wrestling mostly on that TV. And for Jake Nova, he would be hating that right now because there are some unboxed pops hating life. If you haven't already, though, make sure you subscribe to WRA. It's free. You can do it on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you get podcasts from. If you do stop by Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating and review. Helps us get inside more ears. Spread the word. Share the show about WrestleRate Australia. We're on Vodcast as well as Podcast Now. If you do want to support the local industry, please do. Get out there. There are plenty of streaming services, plenty of ways you can support the local industry. Streaming service, you've got Australian Wrestling Network, putting up a lot of stuff for the mostly Australian-only content. PWA are going to be on IWTV now. I think they're also still on OVO Play for their live streaming, so go and check them out. RCW have all their shows up on YouTube, so you can just subscribe to their channel, and they will have all their shows up there doing that. So I think that's about it for sort of streaming services. But go out and support them. Please support the industry now more than ever. We really, really need you to help them get back on their feet and get back to doing what they love doing, and that is entertaining you guys. If you want to support the wrestlers, head to wrestlermerch.com. A lot of guys from around the country now have all of their stuff up there to be bought, so t-shirts and all of that sort of jazz. So please do go and support those guys, especially in these tough times, if you can, of course. If you want to support us, best way to do it is to subscribe and spread the word about the show. Other than that, if you go to redbubble.com, search out Wrestle Radio Australia, we have t-shirts and that up there. But everything I make from that, profits, etc., go to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life, which are two charities that I really do like and I support. I support men's health and all of that sort of stuff. That will be it for this episode of Wrestle Radio Australia. Once again, big thanks to my guest, Joel Bateman. Go and check out Deathmatch Down Under when it comes up on IWTV, and the tickets go on sale next month for the February show. So please do go and check them out. Go and support them. Up and coming new promotion in Australia. Until next week, it's my opinion. You're entitled to it. See you next week.
23, got me feeling way too sweet. Ooh, yeah. Too sweet. Put your fangs up. Too sweet. Pour another cup. Let's be busy 23.